Welcome to Surface Sessions number 5. Reason 8 has just arrived, so it would seem rude not to try it out. Let's have a look. Reason 8 is downloadable in a 3.6 gigabyte zip file, which is pretty weighty but much more conservative than Cubase or Pro Tools. Then you simply extract and run the installer. All too easy. It doesn't bother you with questions about whether you want 32-bit or 60-bit versions or where to put the sound library. It just gets on with it. Usually I like to have control over where things like the sound library goes, so that I can stick it on a separate drive or a separate partition. But with the Surface, I've just got the one drive, so I'm releasing my grip a little bit and just going with all the defaults. Reason has a three-way approach to copy protection. You have the ignition key, or protection dongle to you and me, which holds all your licenses like any other copy protection dongle. But you can also log in to the Propellerheads servers directly from your session. So you just put in a username and password and it authorizes that session there and then. Or alternatively, you can transfer your license to the computer and have that actual computer authorized. So you have the best of every worlds, I suppose. But what this means is that you don't have to have this plugged into the side, which frees up our USB port, means that it's not going to get knocked or broken or squashed, which is, you know, a pretty civilized way of dealing with copy protection. Reason is very tolerant of the audio system that you use. You can use any old driver really. If we pop into the preferences, we can see under audio card driver, lots of different options. You can use DirectX, you can use MME, you can use ASIO. So without an audio interface connected, we're going to use ASIO for all because it gives us the best performance for the onboard sound and also helps us get around the stupid speakers and headphone socket thing being on their own driver and allows us to switch that much more simply. So under ASIO for all, we simply set it up for our second output, which is the headphone socket, as opposed to the first output, which is the speakers. If you want a bit more detail on the ASIO for all thing, then see some of our earlier videos where we hit this problem every time. As we don't have to contend with a dongle in the USB port, we can now plug our audio interface directly in without having to use a hub. Using an audio interface like the Fast Track Duo gives us high quality inputs and outputs and also lower latency. And Reason is quite happy for us to plug that in and change it while it's running. Although of course you're probably going to be using a MIDI keyboard, a USB MIDI keyboard, which will also have to plug into that socket. So our friend the hub might be called back into action. So I suppose that makes quite a good case for one of those combined keyboard audio interfaces type jobbies. Something like the chunky Behringer UM-A25 or Roland A30. Although I'd like to see one of those really sort of cool mini keyboards have an audio interface built in, because that would give you decent low latency outputs along with kind of a more of a bag friendly keyboard. But not to worry, for the moment we're just going to stick with this and have a look around. If we check out the desktop scaling under display settings, if we whack it down to the smallest and have a look at how Reason responds to that, it's actually quite beautiful when it's this small. I mean, the resolution of the screen is such that these synths and bits and pieces are just gorgeously rendered. The mixer as well is just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. However, it really is getting very, very small, and perhaps it's going to cause you a bit of a strain to work on it. So although there are no problems in running it at the smallest desktop scaling, probably the recommended setting is going to be the most comfortable to work with. Reason tends to fight itself a bit for screen space, so you kind of got to get the hang of navigating around the screen in order to make the most of it. I mean, of course, you can attach another screen and you can take off bits like the mixer and stick that onto another screen. You can do the same with the rack, which is one solution, but otherwise on our Surface Pro screen here, you just got to get the hang of navigating about, and you can use the function keys, which are not the most easy thing to use on the Surface Pro, because you've got to hold the function button first and then, oh no, see, that's not even done it. That's not right. Let's go back over here. There we go. Got to hold the function key down in order to access the function keys. But you can quite quickly swap between the different views without too much bother. Reason was born to be touched. I mean, look at it, all these lovely knobs and sliders and bits and pieces, and it frustrates me that I can't seem to get Propellerheads interested in the idea of implementing multi-touch support. You know, the hardware illusion just invites your fingers to come and play. And the sidebar, this Explorer bar at the side, is just perfect for touch. I mean, if you check out the wiring, you know, it would be great to be able to wire more than one thing at once. So I can move one wire, then I can move another, move one out of the way, move one to another place, split them in half. That kind of thing. You just want to be able to move two things at the same time. But everything is small, and so, you know, very small that it's not really finger friendly. Pen friendly maybe, but not very finger friendly. But if I was, you know, if I was Mr. Propellerhead, what I would do is that I would stick a button, like you've got the sequence and mix and EQ buttons here. I'll stick a button on every device that you would tap on, which would then blow up that interface to give you a touch-friendly one. Pinch and zoom also works in the timeline, although unlike Pro Tools and Cubase, which both go horizontally, with Reason you zoom in vertically, up and down, like that, which is quite nice. Doesn't matter which way you try to pinch, the only action is up and down like that in expanding the view. The mixer is also, you know, begging to be touched. I mean, why design a mixer in this way if you don't want people to touch it? You know, but it all works really well with a finger. You can touch every knob, every parameter. Everything is easy to do with a finger. A single touch. It's just very small. But surely it's time to start getting touch technology into this kind of software. In previous videos, I've talked about the difficulties you encounter once you remove the keyboard and lose all of that access to keyboard shortcuts for basic commands and functions. How do you copy and paste? How do you switch between windows without having to navigate to the tiny little menu options here? Well, previously I've shown how I can use Smith & Martin's emulator, sort of virtual MIDI controller, to control Cubase, because Cubase has a depth of MIDI control that allows you to assign MIDI to absolutely every command that's in the program. Reason doesn't have that, level of MIDI control. So in order to use a pen successfully with Reason, I've had to come up with something else, and I have found an alternative, which is this toolbar. Ta-da! I can move it about. This is purely giving keyboard shortcuts. There's no sort of dazzling MIDI control or virtual drivers going on. It's purely sending out keyboard shortcuts. So provided that I've got this selected here, I can now tab to bring on the wiring at the back, bring the mixer full screen, the rack full screen, sequencer full screen. Do you see what I'm doing here? How simple and easy that is, and how much better that is than trying to get under here and do things. If I go into a new simple project here, then I can select a piece, go copy, paste, easy. Hit the edit button to open it up, click the pencil, and I can start drawing notes, close the editor, go back to my rack, play with whatever it is I'm trying to play with, mixer, browser on or off, sequencer, easy. This toolbar is called the Toolbar Creator, and it's sort of made by this mysterious guy called Iblb or Iblb. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but there's no sort of website for it or anything. You have to pop along to tabletpcreview.com, and it's sort of stuck there in the forum somewhere. I'll stick a link somewhere below where you can find it and try it out yourself. It's nearly always in beta version, so there may be problems with it. It's really a work in progress, but it's excellent what is there so far. I'll do a video that really concentrates on that and gets down under the skin so you can see how we put these things together. But for now, this is exactly what you need to make the Surface, Pen and Reason experience work. Genius. So shall I do another one of those making music type demos? You know you love them. There's no general benchmark or door bench available for Reason, so I made one up. I figured that if I loaded up a ton of synths and ran some notes through it, then it would get to a point where the system overloaded, and then you could make a note of with how many synths it ran before it glitched. To make this slightly easier, I used combinators, which would also give a bit more of a realistic vibe to it, in that with each combinator patch they load up a ton of different synths and samplers and a mixture of stuff, so that the benchmark would probably be a bit more sort of fruity in that way. So you can try this at home if you want. I went to Synth Poly because I figured that's going to introduce a whole bunch of synth into each one, and essentially loaded up a bunch of them into the rack. So you can see this one has a number of things in there. Then I'll take another combinator, load that up, and I'll add the next patch in, and so on. And I'll keep going, and then I'll run a bunch of notes through. So I've got this kind of already set up here. And if we look at the MIDI that I'm sending through it, I've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes going in, the last one at the bottom. So this is the point at which it crackled. Let's have a look at the rack. So I currently have all these combinators loaded up, all the way up to Easy Synth. So that's those 8 notes running through each one of those, sustained over a period of time. Aha, and see, I tried to do a little bit much. It's right on the edge of what it can cope with, so when I try to bring up the mixer, it just tipped it over the edge. And Reason doesn't have like doesn't deal with overload particularly well, not like Cubase, where it just likes to crackle and glitch a little bit until you sort of pull it back from the brink and it starts clearing up again. Reason just goes, oh no, sod that, I ain't playing anymore, and it gives you this kind of rather impolite message saying, your computer is too slow to play this. Go away until you have a better computer. So yeah, thanks for that. That's nice. So this is on an untweaked Surface Pro 3, and we have up to, let's get the rack up again. I've got, let's have a count, 15 combinators running a random number of synths. So, you know, that's a whole load of stuff. And this is on an untweaked Surface, and it's with this interface running at its lowest latency, so the most strain on the CPU, and that's the number it's allowed to do. As comparison, if you like, I ran the same test on our just most gorgeous Molten Midget desktop computer, which has a full fat Core i3 processor inside, and that was able to do 1 or 2 more. So that's an interesting comparison. It shouldn't be taken as an absolute guide, because I'd say I haven't tweaked this and I haven't gone through all those sorts of processes of repeating things and such like. So I'll do a complete another video on tweaking and performance testing, and we can get right down to what that's all about. But as a guide, the Surface Pro 3 here, this is an i5 with the U series Ultrabook processor, is running about the same as a full fat desktop i3, at least in this test, in this circumstance. The design and workflow of Reason 8 really lends itself to the Surface Pro 3. Part of the coolness of Reason is that you can make music easily with just a mouse, or in this case a pen and a bit of touch. The pattern-based drum machines, the matrix sequencer, the Rex file player, they're all sort of geared towards this kind of input and this kind of manipulation. It's also very tolerant of audio drivers, making it an ideal piece of software to use on the go. You can just take it, pair of headphones and the pen, and you're off. If they could just make it multi-touch and blow up the GUIs like I suggested, and it would just be perfection. If you'd like to hear more about my thoughts of Reason 8, then I've done a full review video in our YouTube channel. Next up, Ableton Live, so watch out for that. And remember, if you need a desktop computer for music production, like our just fabulous Molten Midget, then contact Molten Music Technology and let us build one for you. Until next time, please connect with the subscription and the Facebook and the Twitter and come and talk to us. I'd love to hear from you. Cheers.